Last week I began a message series called Boys to Men, not the 90s R&B group, but from boyhood to manhood. And we looked into the biblical qualities of manhood. And I'm going to dig into that in just a little bit, but I wanted to read a section of a fairy tale that I think is relevant to what we're talking about today. This is a prince story. Once upon a time, a prince asked a beautiful princess to marry him. She said no. So instead, the prince had a poker night, hung out with his buddies, and drank beer from a red Solo cup. He smoked cigars in the house and left the toilet seat up whenever he wanted to. For income, the prince Twitch streamed himself playing video games like Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto all night and slept all day. He spent all his money on himself and experienced every day like he was Ferris Bueller. And the prince lived happily ever after. The end. That story is a dream story for a lot of boys, not men. I don't have an issue with guys who do some of those things, but I do have an issue if that's how they define manhood. Being male and doing what you want is not the sign of a real man. If you are born with certain anatomy and DNA, that makes you male, but that does not make you a man. I've told you that I know guys in their 40s that act like boys, and I've seen 15-year-old guys who act like men. The movement from boyhood to manhood is not an age line. There's no age when you automatically become a man, even though in our society, 18 years old qualifies you as adulthood for certain things. 21 years old qualifies you as adulthood for other things. And then you have the weird, arbitrary 23 years old to rent a car. But those things have nothing to do with assuming responsibility for your actions. And the world needs men to stand up and act like men of integrity and character. Last week was Father's Day, so I began this, but there was more to be said, so I'm carrying it over into this week. I wanted to show you some statistics that were found from APFI. And these statistics, 1 in 3 children in the United States are being raised in a home without the presence of a father. Families without a father present are 4 times more likely to live in poverty. 4 times more likely if there's no father present. And the last one before I get to it, when you look at incarceration, you look at the prison system, 85% of incarcerated youths come from fatherless homes. The thing that they have in common more than anybody else, not their economic background, not their racial background, their fatherlessness. 85% of incarcerated youths come from fatherless homes. The absence of strong, dependable men is one of our biggest failures as a culture. We need boys to become men. We need boys to grow up and become men. So, of course, with last week being Father's Day, I spoke to you on the difference between boys and men. And we looked at the verse that's the keynote verse that'll carry over for today. It's 1 Corinthians 16, verses 13 and 14. We said it together last week. Let's do it again. Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, let all that you do be done in love. Father, thank you for your word today. God, I pray for the men in this room, those watching online, that we would put away boyhood things and that we would move into manhood with these 5 attributes of biblical manhood, God. that we would be bold, strong, brave, that we act like men, but that all that we do be done in love for your glory. Lord, anoint our time together, that we leave this place better than we walked in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so again, these 5 attributes of biblical manhood listed in these 2 verses. There's 4 of them that we saw last week, and the first one was be watchful. And I showed you how men have a godly vision, but boys live day to day. Stand firm in the faith. Men stand out. Boys follow the crowd. Act like men, or the other, looking into the Greek translation, that phrase, act like men, is also translated as being brave. Men blaze new trails. Boys stay at home. And then be strong. Men value hard work, while boys waste time. And then the last biblical attribute, the attribute of biblical manhood, is verse 14. Let all you do be done in love. I introduced it last week, but we're going to drill down today on this portion. Men are protectors. Boys are predators. You protect what you love, right? Real men are protectors. Real men are willing to lay down their lives for others, just like Jesus did. So what does it mean to be a protector? We'll go back again and look at Noah. Quick catch up from where we were. Genesis chapter 6 is where we were last week. We saw how Noah was a great example of biblical manhood because he was watchful. The Bible tells us that he walked with God. He was close enough in his relationship with God that God just had to speak to him. He didn't even need to get his attention. Noah found favor with God, and he was blameless. He was a righteous man and blameless, and Noah walked with God. He was firm in the faith. The rest of the world was filled with wickedness, but Noah found favor. Noah was also brave. He took on the task of building the first cargo ship in the history of mankind. And Noah was strong. It took around a century to build the ark, which means he was chopping down hundreds or thousands of trees and sawing and just a lot of physical work. He didn't know when the flood was going to come. He just knew that God told him to build the ark, so he worked diligently until it was finished because Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. He was a righteous man, blameless in his generation, and he walked with God. Noah wasn't afraid to take the unpopular position. The world back then wasn't all that different than it is today. Now, sure, technology was different. They didn't have all the technology that we have today that makes life easier to deal with for things like building an ark. However, I firmly believe that we are living in the days of Noah where people do whatever they want to do and forsake what is righteous. It said that the word talked about how the hearts of men were continually filled with evil. Violence, corruption, perversion, sexual immorality. That sounds like the days of Noah. That sounds like the world today. Verse 13, God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. God decided to wipe the slate clean and start over, and he chose Noah. Why? Noah found favor with God. Noah was different than everybody else. The rest of the men were predators, but Noah was a protector. Again, it took around 100 years. There's debate whether it took 120 or 75. Regardless, we'll average it out and say it took about a century to build the ark. Why would Noah work on the most difficult engineering project in history at that time for so long? Well, for one, because God told him to. He walked with God and listened to what he said, and God told him to build this ark, and yes, sir, I'll do it. But also, we can see the answer in Hebrews 11, verse 7. By faith, Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen, in reverent fear, constructed the ark for the saving of his household. Noah was a protector. There's a couple of things that I want to pull from the life of Noah today on men being protectors. The first one is this, is that Noah protected the vulnerable. You see, a protector will save those who can't save themselves. Men are protectors, boys are predators. Through Noah, God preserved, he saved the entire human race. Not just that, but all the creatures that walked the earth, the birds of the air. That sounds epic. That sounds like a pretty significant thing, and it really was. It wasn't build you a little boat so you and your family can have a nice little cabin. No, he built this 450-foot long ark that was, the dimensions were 6 to 1, were the exact scale of a cargo ship today. God gave him this instructions on how to build this massive ark because he was supposed to bring in every animal. And we know the story. They marched in 2 by 2. And if you had Sunday school as a kid, you probably learned songs about it and toys. So the ark was built in such a way that it could house all of those people. And now here's the thing. God created every animal on earth, regardless of whether you like the animal or not. God created it, and it were important enough that he wanted room for them on the ark. That means the majestic eagles that soar above. That when you see one, you just, wow. There's a couple of eagles that live in the woods area back behind the church here in Dundee, and every once in a while I will see one or both of them on a pole or something in the parking lot. I love it. In fact, I only thought there was one until I saw the second one here recently. But for 6.5 years, I've seen one or the other of them around. In fact, I named him Sam. Sam Eagle, like the Muppet, like Uncle Sam, because he's an eagle. So it's beautiful. I love it. God made the eagles that soar above us. You know what he also made? The rats, the filthy rats that crawl on the ground under your feet. And you know what else God made? The cockroaches that soar above your head and crawl under your feet. You want to see somebody instantly become a ninja? Watch them when they see a roach take off with its wings and it comes around their head. God cared enough about them to instruct Noah to create space for them on the ark because they could not save themselves. I'm sure there are some animals that you wish God had just let go. Roaches are one of them. Let them go, God. Mosquitoes, oh. Fire ants, oh. But God loved them enough. They have a purpose. He created them with a purpose that he told Noah to create space for them. Now, this isn't about animals. I'm not getting into a PETA sermon today. But men are protectors. Men protect those who cannot protect themselves. Last Sunday, I showed you this picture of me playing basketball. You know, my dunk. And I told you how it's you know, some of you could tell just by looking at it, but the reality was I lowered that rim. I lowered the standard so that I could reach a goal and feel better about the effort that I was putting in. Well, I'm going to pull back the curtain on this guy a little bit more. It's hard to believe now, but I actually was a scrawny little kid. And you just put the title screen up. We don't need to see that anymore. I'm mad at that kid looking at that picture. I was a scrawny kid, and I got picked on and bullied because of things that were out of my control, like the color of my hair. Back then, my hair was very, very orange. And it was curly. And it was thick. And when it wasn't curly, it looked like a Brillo pad. It was just... So I got picked on. I was an easy target. When I was in 8th grade, I started attending a school that had grades 8 through 12. And of course, going into it, I'm like, yeah, I'm in high school. I was in 8th grade. I'm like, I'm going to the high school. Yeah, I got classes with seniors, and I thought it was going to be the coolest thing. The classes were like PE, but I was excited to be at this school. That didn't last long. I was the easy target. And the older kids were brutal. Like the juniors and seniors see this 8th grade kid come in with the funny hair, and I made some poor decisions with my wardrobe, if you couldn't tell by that basketball jersey with the t-shirt under it and the unmatching shorts I was wearing. I made some terrible decisions with my wardrobe, and that just egged on the bullying, and it was brutal. Then I hit a growth spurt between 9th and 10th grades, and by the time I was in 11th grade, my bullies had graduated. I wasn't such an easy target anymore. It was my chance to become a man. I could protect the vulnerable like me, but that's not what happened. I've told this story before. Some of you have heard it, some haven't. Instead of becoming the protector, I was still a boy, and I became what I hated. I became a bully. I was a predator. My behavior back then is one of the biggest regrets of my life, and I was devastated to find out. A few years after I graduated high school, I'd gone on to college. I was actually studying ministry, and my mother called to tell me that one of the kids that I had bullied, and I gave this kid a really hard time, he had taken his own life, and it devastated me. Here I was a different person when I found out than I was when I was in school. However, I could have been his advocate. I could have helped him. But I was a boy and not a man. And it began to shift me from boyhood to manhood. Real men are protectors. Boys are predators. So Noah protected those who were vulnerable. Noah protected those who could not protect themselves. The animals and his family. And that's where I want to drill down a little bit deeper. And the second thing is that Noah protected the future. Boys are only concerned with what's in front of them. Men look towards the future and they think long term. Boys are concerned with how am I going to get through the day? What am I going to do so I don't get bored? Men set themselves aside and work towards a long-term goal because they are protecting the future. And you protect your future by protecting your family. Real men don't walk away from their families. Real men don't surrender their children to the world. And I understand mistakes happen. I'm not here condemning any mistake that any of you have made because I've made plenty of mistakes of my own. But I know that God is the one who can restore what has been broken. So one of the ways that we protect the future is you protect your children. Protect your children. Fathers, your children need more than just your rules. Your kids need your example. They need you to be a leader in their lives. Be present. This one is difficult and sobering. Be the kind of man you want your son to become and the kind of man you want your daughter to marry. Because that's what they see. Too many times parents will allow the school to raise their kids. And I'm grateful that we have educators that are godly men and women that understand the gravity of the spiritual attack that comes against students. But there aren't enough of them to raise your kids righteous. Parents, we are the ones who should be the primary influence in the lives of our kids. Look, I'm grateful that we have wonderful children's ministry here. I'm grateful that we have wonderful youth ministry here. But our children's and our youth pastors are not supposed to be the primary influence in the lives of your children. Fathers and mothers, this is about boys becoming men, but mothers take the role in your families as well to be the spiritual leadership and example in their lives. You see, the Bible is not silent on parenting. There's encouragement in Proverbs 22. It's one of the most popular parenting passages in the Bible. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Children need to know the Word of God. Your kids need to see you reading the Bible. Your kids need to hear you pray. The world is continually filling their minds and their lives with lies. Lies about identity, lies about what is or isn't sin. There are things that look like it's righteousness or it's spiritual, having a form of godliness but denying the power, is what the scriptures say. It looks like it's right, but it's not. Romans 10:14 says this, "But before people can pray to the Lord for help, they must believe in Him. And before they can believe in the Lord, they must hear about Him. And for anyone to hear about the Lord, someone must tell them." And that's the mandate to us. How will our children know the truth if we aren't living it ourselves? Whether you realize it or not, you need to be the primary influence in your child's life. Not only are we to train them in the world, but we're to protect them from being led astray. Matthew 18 and verse 6. Again, one of the more popular parenting verses, and this one is a warning. The first one was an encouragement. This is a warning. "Whoever causes one of these little ones to believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and be thrown into the depths of the sea." If you don't know what a millstone is, when I was in Israel, I was blessed to be able to go to a site where they had an ancient millstone, and it was about that big around, and it was solid rock with a hole cut out in the middle so that it could run around and crush grain, and also a stone vat. But when I saw that, it's not like just something that you put around your neck. No, it is basically, like the mafia. You put on some concrete shoes and go swimming sleeps with the fishes. It would be better for you to have a massive stone put around your neck and dropped in the ocean than if you do something to harm one of these little ones who believes in Jesus. It's important to Him that we protect our children. So we protect the future by protecting our children. Men, you also protect the future by protecting your marriage. Husbands, your responsibility is to protect your marriage by loving your wife right. Ephesians 5:25, "Husbands, love your wives, as Christ loved the church and gave Himself up for her." A lot of times we go to Ephesians 5 and are like, yeah, women obey your wives, wives obey your husbands. No, misspoke, y'all are with me. Wives obey your husbands. And oh yeah. But husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and laid down His life. Jesus loved the church so much that He laid down His life for us, so that we would have a path to God through Him. We're called to protect our wives in the same way. That verse in 1 Corinthians says, "Let all you do be done in love." An attribute of biblical manhood is to let all you do be done in love. Doing all you do in love means putting boyhood tendencies aside and protecting the women in your life. You protect her time. You protect her reputation. Protect her calling. One of the quickest ways for a man to regress back into a boy is to fail to have guardrails in place to protect your marriage. So for the next couple minutes, I'm going to show you some guardrails, and some of this is going to be uncomfortable. When it gets uncomfortable, that's when it's getting good. First one, men, never meet alone with another woman. That should be common sense. But it happens. Look, I have certain guardrails in my own life. I've seen too many ministries ruined by something that starts out innocent. All it takes is an accusation, and you don't. If you don't have the right guardrails in place, then what you're doing is you're opening yourself up to temptation. It may start out completely normal. I'm just going to a business dinner with this person that I work with. Maybe it's right after work. We're driving the same way. We're stopping at the same restaurant to grab dinner. Why don't we just do that together? It may start innocent, but that's where it starts, and it leads towards temptation and sin. So I won't meet a woman alone in my office. The staff knows this. Other people know this. I don't go into my office with a woman and have the door closed. If there's somebody in there, the door is open, and usually there's somebody else in the room as well. I don't meet with women alone in my office. And there's something else, an extra guardrail that I have in place. There's cameras all around the facility. There are cameras for security purposes that our security director and some of our others that have access to. So if there's something that happens, if somebody breaks in, comes on the property, they show up on security cameras. But there are some in the back hallway here that if anybody is in that back hallway, in fact, the one that's on the corner right here by this door looks into my office. So if I have somebody in my office sitting on the love seat there, they're on camera, as long as the door's open. But I went even further than that, and I have another camera in my office that looks across my office right at my desk. The reason I have that is because if there are times that the door has to be closed, and it's never with a woman, but the only person that has access to that camera, other than myself, to pull up the video feed, is Lindsay. It's my wife. Nobody else, none of the other staff or security need to be able to see or hear counseling sessions or anything else that I have that goes on in there. But as a way for accountability, I don't know that Lindsay has ever dropped in on me to see what I'm doing if I'm still at the office or whatever, but she has access to that. Why? Because I love my wife, and I want to protect my wife, and in doing so, I'm protecting her from my potential failure. So I have guardrails in place. Pastor, are you saying I need to have hidden cameras? No. I'm giving you an example of how I have guardrails that protect my marriage. Find what works for you, but a good guardrail is to never meet alone with another woman. Here's another guardrail to protect your marriage. Avoid sharing too much with someone who's not your wife. There's a term that is lighthearted and can be used jokingly, your work wife. That is a damaging phrase. Because when you have a work wife, I get it. Sometimes it's like, well, yeah, she's my work wife because when I go to work, I am with this person. It's an innocent relationship. We just work side by side, and we're close to one another. And as innocent as that may be in its inception, the enemy will find a foothold to begin to tempt. And that temptation comes, and eventually, if there are not guardrails in place, it grows and grows and grows. You can be friends with someone of the opposite sex, but if you want to protect your marriage, then you need to be guarded against emotional entanglements. So many marriages are in turmoil because one or the other has an emotional affair with somebody else, but they justify it by saying, well, I would never have anything physical with that person. But emotionally, the guardrails have been gone, and they are sharing too much with somebody that is not their spouse. That is a guardrail that we need to have up. If not, the temptation grows. Proverbs 6:27 says this, can a man carry fire next to his chest and his clothes not be burned? Why would you play with fire? Don't give the enemy a foothold. Never meet alone with another woman. Avoid sharing too much. And the third way, guardrail that protects your marriage. Use parental controls on all screen devices. This is good parenting advice, so your children are protected. But have it on your own devices to block anything that you may encounter online. See, when I was growing up, we didn't have instant access to pornography like we do now. When I was growing up, if you wanted to see pornography, you had to go to the skeevy gas station and ask the guy at the register to get it for you from the counter behind him, from the shelf. Or you go to the video rental store, and I'm not talking about like Blockbuster, I'm talking about like, the little local places that have a curtain and it had the adult section. You had to go back there and rent it. I'm like, Pastor, you know too much about this. I was a boy, not a man. Now, it's on almost every internet-connected device that you own. One of the speakers at camp meeting gave a disturbing fact. He's from Baltimore, and he was talking about how one of the largest online pornography companies is headquartered near where his church is. And he said this, millions upon millions of men are subscribed to that website. I want to say it was 67 million men. No, it was 80 million. It was over 80 million men were subscribed to that website. Not would drop in on that website, that was their preferred, they are subscribed. And 67, here's where 67 came in, 67% of the men who are subscribed to that website are married. I talked about having an emotional affair. The addiction to pornography and the ease that the enemy has made it to where it can be anywhere, it's tearing marriages apart. Men are protectors. Boys are predators. And whether you realize it or not, men, anytime that you click on pornography online, or you share something on email, or you have subscribed to a website, you are involved in perpetuating sex trafficking. No, I'm not doing that. All I'm doing is just looking at something in the privacy of my own home. It's just for me. It doesn't make me want to hurt it. But if there's a market for it, you are feeding that beast. And in feeding that beast, you are enhancing, you are accelerating the sex trade around the world and in our own backyard. You know what that makes men who look at pornography? Predators. Makes them not men, it makes them boys. Boys are predators. Men are protectors. Told you it's uncomfortable. It's so easy to destroy your marriage, your relationship with God, just by clicking and scrolling. Set up parental controls so your devices are protected, but parental controls somewhat that you don't have access to change those things, those settings. if it's a trusted accountability partner, if it's some people you may trust your spouse to do that. For some of you, you don't want to put that kind of burden on your wife. And if that's the case, I do that for multiple other people. I will be that password guard for you as well. Contact me privately. And I'll set up a password on your device that you can't change that will protect you. Why? It's a guardrail. I'm not going to walk near the line because I want to be a man. I want to be a protector. I don't want to be involved in predatory activity. I don't want to be led astray. I want to live a life that is holy and pleasing to God. And if I keep taking the guardrails off, that's all it takes for the enemy to start slipping things in. And it doesn't mean that you wake up one morning and all of a sudden you're into the most graphic pornography. Nope. It starts with someone on your social media wearing something a little less than they should be, and then that begins the thought, and then it downhill from there. Protect. Bringing this to a close, our big verse, keynote verse for this whole thing again, 1 Corinthians 16. Verses 13 and 14. Say it together. Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. Let all that you do be done in love. Be a man. Men, I'm not trying to scare you into becoming men. I want you to be a protector out of love, not out of fear or obligation. It's like coercing somebody to get saved, pressuring someone to come down and get saved. You've got to do it. Get down there, pray, and then they go down and pray, and there's not really any heart change. Where did anything written? No. I am not trying to guilt you or threaten you to be a man out of fear or obligation. I want you to be a man out of love for God and being who He created you to be, out of love for your children because they need you to be an example of biblical manhood. They need to see, your sons need to see what kind of man they can become. Your daughters need to see what they should be looking for in a husband. You don't need to build a literal ark to protect your family the way Noah did. But you do need to build your life in such a way that it shelters them under God's word and under God's love. Don't let somebody else build the ark for your family. You do it. Because real protection isn't about control. It's about covering. Real protection isn't about dominance. It's about defense. Real protection isn't about fear. It's about being faithful. It's about love. Will you stand? Paul said, let all you do be done in love. Let that be your legacy. One of the most popular passages in the Bible about love is a great way for us to see how we can be protectors. Jesus said this in John 15, verse 12. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Make the commitment to be a man, an example of biblical manhood for your children to see, for your spouses to see, for others to see, so that you can be an example. So that we talked earlier when I was having people stand up and and tell testimonies. In Revelation, it says that they were made overcomers by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. We're testifying because of what God has done for us. A witness in a trial testifies of what they have seen and they have experienced and what they know. Maybe it's an expert witness. What do? They testify about what they've learned. We are made overcomers by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So you tell others what you've seen, what you've experienced, and in doing so, God is using you to be men. God is using you with biblical manhood as an example for others to see. Ladies, you're not exempt from all this message today because it's been focused on men. Your testimony can help somebody else out of their mess. Well, what do, Pastor? I don't have a strong example of biblical manhood in my life right now, and I've been praying. We'll help you pray that as well, that God would send the right person. But we are called, men, we are called to be righteous leaders of our houses. Don't fall victim to the temptation to return to boyhood. Don't be a predator. Be a protector.